Welcome, everybody. This is Hugh Massey, the chairman and founder of DNA Behaviour. And today I'm delighted to be giving you a walkthrough of money behaviour influences. At DNA Behaviour, we've said a lot about the fact that we are the behaviour and money insights company. And through our systems and our work, we're doing more and more every day to bring together behavior and money, put another way, to look at all of our behaviors around money through a behavioral lens. If you've been through our business DNA training and had a look at some of our modules there and understand the traits, you will soon see how those traits flow through to how a person behaves with money. If you've been following our financial DNA training modules, where we talk a lot about financial behavior, how an advisor needs to work with their clients, the insights I'm going to provide you now will give you further clarification of how behavior and money connect. At the outset, I just want to make the point that money is omnipresent throughout our lives. It's everywhere. Every day we're having conversations about money. Money is impacting us while we sleep because it's in our thought patterns. Money is a very powerful energy source. And I think all of you listening to this know that, at least intuitively, and this is why you want to learn more. And we are unpacking this further in our deeper money energy work, and you can start to learn more about that on our website at dnabehaviour.com. and participate in some of those programs. But just to take away the fact that money is omnipresent, it is there in every decision in some way, even if you're looking at spending more money on lifestyle, or you're looking at changing your job, or you're making a leadership decision, buying, selling a business, dealing with family issues. Money is there on the surface and below the surface in terms of being internally with you. And in dealing with money and having conversations about money, and I will finish up this segment with the approach to having conversations about money, it's always important to just go back to the basics of what we teach at DNA Behaviour. And that starts with identity. Helping a person understand who they are first is critical. They've got to have buy-in to that, an awareness of that before they're going to make sensible financial decisions and dealings, and have sensible dealings with money. Dealing with diversity, we're all different. And because of our different behavioral styles, we all have different perspectives on life, our upbringing, we've had different experiences. That all flows through to how we deal with money. And then the part there in the grey, managing money energy, is totally related to your behavior. And that's why in the helix, if you look at it, it's double-sided. And we've always talked about one side being the DNA behavior side of it, but the other side is energy, and your energy follows your behavior. So from that perspective, your money energy follows your financial behavior. So to reiterate, what we are doing in our system now is, for every user of the system, providing both the core behavioral insights that we've always provided, but we're making available more of those. And then as a corollary, the money insights are being provided. So you will always be able to see as you start to understand a person, not only their general behavioral style, but also the money style. And that's what I'm unpacking a little bit more here in this training segment. And just going back to the basics, at DNA behavior, we are measuring the inherent DNA behavioral style that all of you have. And this is evolved from the time you're conceived to about the time you're 7 years old. And this is the inherent DNA behavior. That's the hardwired behavior. So it's genetics plus the learned experiences from about the first 7 years of your life. Generally, for a lot of people, it sits below the surface and doesn't emerge till they're under pressure. And pressure, I've always said, is caused by any number of events in your life, but importantly, relationships can put you under pressure, and money puts you under pressure. There are behaviors that you see on the surface, and they can be seen from activities that what somebody's doing, what they're saying, and then in financial planning setting, there's a situational risk profile. But there is so much more below the surface to be discovered, and that's why you would all be using the DNA behavior systems. We do focus on financial behavior capability, and I'll unravel this a little bit more in a few minutes in the training to specifically drill in on your hardwired behavioral patterns for saving money, setting goals, and taking risk, because these three behaviors are fundamental to your ability to grow wealth. Your money energy, as I've already mentioned before, is this stored up force that you all have. You want to call it, it's something that's pent up inside you that can be unleashed. And the key is to understand this so that you can channel it in the right places to create money for yourself. And part of it is your relationship with money and understanding how you feel about money. And again, a lot more has been said about that in our Money Energy series and our Money Energy white paper, which can be downloaded at the dnabehavior.com website. And then we also address this concept called behavioral variability, which in a way is measuring the differences of how people behave and react and decide in relation to similar transactions. What are the behaviors that are coming up? And we're really here putting measurement on human behavior. So just to start off with, in getting to the hardcore of behavior, in any setting that you're dealing with, we want people to be happier, more successful, and healthy. And the first place to start with in that is getting a person aligned to who they are, having them do work that is aligned to their talents and their passions, and generally speaking, where they're going to be happy. So here I've just, really as a recap, given that probably you all know something about the DNA behavior traits already, the types of work that each of you would like to be doing depending on your mix of talents. Now, this is just a summary because, as you know, we emphasize people really drilling in on their top two behavioral factors. I'm just dealing with 4 of them here. So for the take charge people, they're probably going to want to do work. It's strategic in nature, visionary, taking some risks or being venturesome, questioning things. So analysis, being a realist about making decisions. Whereas the outgoing person's about building networks, connecting with people. They thrive where they have to improvise, where there's a lot of change. They often cope, just generally being great people connectors. And then the patient people want more steady environments. Stability is important. They like to collaborate with others. They're generally going to be compliant and quite procedural. And then the plan people like analysis, structured. So this is, more engineering, administrative, financial type work, implementing things. And again, to reiterate, all of us have some mix of these talents at varying degrees. And that's the key with DNA behavior, is knowing what degree you have these behaviors, how strong they are, work with the flow, that is, work with your strengths. Don't swim uphill or up the river too much. But sometimes you've got to adapt for the situation, and that is the emotional intelligence. But in creating wealth in your life, having financial well-being, you are going to be better off when you are working in your talents and having a role that's aligned to those, and of course tied to that being your passion. So, the greatest success in life, I think, does come when you can find a role where your talents and your passion are all met. So your money behavior, I've broken it again down at a high summary level here across the 4 core styles or factors of take charge, outgoing, patient, and planned. And you can start to see the difference. The take charge person is going to be very goal driven. So you can see that flow from the previous slide. The outgoing person is desiring engagement, making connections. Patient person, very harmonious. They want stability and safety in their lives. They're going to make decisions on that basis. Then the planned person has a need for data. And you can start to see the behavioral biases here that will be influencing their decisions or coming up in their decision-making processes. So the natural money behavior influences are spelled out a little bit more here. And again, I'm just emphasizing, you can see the flow from the behavioral talents and factors to how someone might naturally deal with money. And I emphasize natural because this is based on the natural hardwired behavior. It doesn't mean that as a person goes through life, that they won't make conscious choices in other areas because it's important for them. So, for example, a take charge person could be very pioneering, pushy towards achieving their goals, very competitive, just an outright driven person to achieving their goals. And that can mean that they will do that to the expense of many other areas of their life. So at what point do they taper that and spend their time and their money in different areas? But interestingly, they will invest their money or spend their money and engage in activities where there's an opportunity involved, an opportunity to grow, and that could be to achieve a goal. That would be life experience focused. They might spend more money on that than perhaps material things, whereas the outgoing person could be a bit more of a material spender, a little bit more short-term for today in their spending, having fun. So you can start to see the differences. This would be a high impact investor, also a high impact giver. So they might give a lot to 1 or 2 areas, whereas the outgoing person might give to multiple areas and will be quite generous with it, because remember, a lot of their life is about building networks and people connection. So in a way, the money is going to follow that. And then we can come down here to the patient people. Security is a big thing for them in terms of money, loss aversion. You will have seen from the previous slide, they have a higher loss aversion than everybody else. The family stability is important, so ensuring their money is directed towards family stability will be critical to them. Being financially compliant community giving, so giving to lots of community projects to help the community, particularly the local community, will be important for them. And as I've mentioned already, they will fear high volatility. Then the plan people, one of the big areas with them is not having enough money, and it doesn't really matter how much money they have. They will always fear that. And I've dealt with people that have $100,000 and have $50 million and with similar styles, behavioral styles, and they always have a fear of not having enough. But they will always do a lot of money on spend a lot of time on analysis. They will also be very retirement focused. So this graph becomes, I think, the pillar for anyone that is going to sit down and have a conversation with their client about money and to be able to see what their perspectives are. This will help. And to even put this graphic in front of the client and get them to talk about themselves in the context of the points on this graph. And, you know, where is it true and not true? Again, you know, as we always emphasize in our training, the strength of a behavior is going to come down to, you know, how strong is it in terms of the score? Somebody with a score of a T-score of 70 is going to have a dramatically different strength of behavior to someone with a T-score of 55, for example, you know, and that's population weighted. So you've got to look at this in a relative way, but laying these the money behavior influences out in front of the client and getting them to pinpoint what's true, what's not true, what they're focusing on, where they want to go, is an easy way to have the money conversation. The concept I raised earlier with the iceberg slide is natural financial behavior capability. And this is where we have gone and identified the 3 key behaviors for creating and growing wealth and also sustaining the wealth. And these, again, these behaviors are reflecting hardwired styles only. This is what the natural behavior measures. And the one that I believe is the most important is budget and savings. And only 11% of the universe is high on that. And then the wealth creation is your goal setting and whether you'll pursue the goals. And then there's the risk taking, whether you'll take the risks to create wealth. Ultimately, you have to take some risks to create wealth. And the problem for some people is that they are high spenders and there's no money left in terms of income or capital to invest. And then ultimately, when there is, they've got to take very high risks and they may be beyond their limits in that area emotionally. So in the end, being stronger in all 3 is preferable, or is a good foundation for wealth creation at an overall level. Ultimately, whether you do or not, let's say that you do have a high propensity to create wealth or what we would call a high natural financial behavior capability, that doesn't mean that you will be wealthy. Because creating wealth is going to come down to the decisions that you make in your life. And in a way, we all reflect the decisions. But we all reflect the decisions we make. But what this is saying is we've all got a natural starting point for the level of financial capability that we might have behaviorally. And from there, we've got to go and work on it and develop ourselves. And so you will see here where we have taken a sample of 65,000 of our clients who've completed the natural behavior discovery process. And based on their unique styles, we've measured out what their financial behavior capability is based on the combination of these 3 scores. And also we've measured their financial, emotional intelligence and whether they've got a propensity to grow or sustain wealth. Growth is important, but also sustaining, protecting is important too. So let's not get carried away with one way or the other. But if you look at in the green column here, this is the financial behavior capability. And you will see that the initiators typically are typically going to have a higher financial capability at a natural level. But whether they create wealth in their lives or not, again, comes down to conscious choices that they make. And these people might be the boom and bust people that who once phase of their life they make money and another phase they lose it. So, you know, again, that's a management issue, because what we see is people do create wealth at one stage of their life out of a business or making a sale or doing something positive, and then they make a series of bad decisions and they lose it all. One of my most successful clients when I had the wealth management business 20 years ago was a relationship builder. And on paper, or based on the natural behavioral style, not as driven. But he was able to build a business through his innovation capabilities. It created a lot of wealth, and then he's developed himself, and he's been very good at since the exit from that business at then conserving the wealth and generally growing and taking advantage of the opportunities that come. So this is you know, one example of someone with not as high financial behavior capability who's done it. But you can see saving is quite high there. The engagers and community builders are at the lower end here. And I think a lot of this is the fact that they don't save as much money naturally, and they're more cautious, certainly in here, and not as driven towards goals. But this is not to say that they can't create wealth. And it comes down again to conscious choice, building the right relationship with money. And they might make more lifestyle type choices with it as well. I would also emphasize that this is based on the 10 unique styles. The ultimate calculations come down to the actual score you have in the relevant factors that sit underneath this. So some engagers will be a little bit more structured and orientated towards saving than this number. Certainly, I know some that are extremely goal-driven and take high risks, so their number will go up quite dramatically. That does come down to your overall mix of scores as to what your ultimate natural financial behavior capability will be. But again, you know, like we always say, this is the starting point, and then it's about growth thereafter, and how much work are you going to do on that to grow and succeed. The discussion out there now around behavioral finance has grown a lot. I think everything I've talked to you about so far has been behavioral finance, but people do have decision-making biases that are hardwired into them from being 7 years old. Daniel Kahneman talks about that in his book, Thinking Fast and Slow. And you know, all we're doing is putting measurement on a lot of those quite well-known behavioral biases that have emerged from research. And it is style-driven. And the fact is that The strength of these biases comes down to the strength of your behavioral style in that particular area. And this is where we've laid them all out. You know, the big one that's talked about in prospect theory that came up from the research done by Daniel Kahneman is loss aversion. And that at the end of the day, people will seek to protect themselves or have a loss aversion 2 times to the desire for taking an opportunity. But I think that, you know, based on the work that we've done, that loss aversion would be different among different people. The risk takers up here will not have as high a loss aversion, whereas the patient people have a higher loss aversion. The loss aversion here might be closer to 5 to 1 for a stronger person that's patient. And for the plan people, depending on their risk score, it might be 2 or 3 to 1. And for these guys up here who are stronger risk takers, it might be 1.5 times to 2. So the 2 to 1 that came up in prospect theory would ultimately not be across the board, because people have different propensities for risk and how they're emotionally going to handle losses. But what this graphic does do is gives you an idea where people sit, and when you're trying to get decisions made or want to understand how they might make decisions, this provides a lot of understanding. Our financial DNA reports define each of these biases for the person based on their 2 strongest biases. So I'm not going to unpack that any more here. While the foundation of the DNA behavior system is based on the natural DNA behavior style, hardwired up to the age of 7 years old, and particularly for those life experiences up to 3, that's really where 80% of it comes from. That's the emphasis that we have in our work, because we want people to understand their starting point and know that that's where they will instinctively go back to. So that's what emerges most of the time. But we all do have a learned financial behavior. We all, as humans, are adapting, evolving, and we can make ourselves adapt and evolve. We can do the hard work to do that. And therefore, our personality does evolve through our lifetime. Some of that's conscious, some of that's subconscious. But you know, to put on the table that people do evolve, and in particularly with money, I think it's important that you have a conscious awareness of it and its impact on you, and you get more conscious in your decision making. And be aware of how the life experiences impacted you. Memories. The very early life experiences and memories will be very shaping, and that will fall into your hardwired behavior. But you also have a lot of life experiences and memories that come from events that take place later in life. And depending when they happen, they can be very shaping. Values are important. The values that you're brought up with can shape how you deal with money. And I would put social influences in here, and this is where culture plays a role. And then your level of education. And the more specific the education is to dealing with money and investment transactions, then probably the more relevant it is. You know, someone who's got higher education degrees in an area not related to dealing with money would not be as knowledgeable about money, and their learned financial behaviors will be different. An area that we are talking more and more about at DNA behavior is stress, and money causes stress. It's probably the biggest cause of stress in people's lives, and I think that's why we've got to have a lot more conversations about money and take the conversation away from being taboo, get the elephant out of the room, and talk about it. And the biggest issue for people in terms of what does cause stress is lack of savings. And that's why I had the measurement done on financial behavior capability, because of the impact of savings on people's lives. Because if you could save money, then you can build financial flexibility, you can have more control on your life. That's your gateway out to happiness, having better health. And this is the other issue that we need to keep emphasizing, is that if you are stressed, you're unlikely to be happy. It's going to impact your success, and definitely it's going to impact your health. And so these are the areas that cause stress, generally speaking, that cause stress in people's lives. And again, you'll see the pattern here coming from the core DNA behavior traits. In our DNA behavior systems, we have an app called the Market Mood Dashboard. This is available in the DNA administration system. So you can see how somebody is feeling about market events at any particular time. It's measured real time. Some people, when the market's gone down, will be a green. They'll be feeling good about it because they see it as an opportunity. Other people will be scared, fearful, concerned, and they'll show up as a red. If they've got a moderate feeling, it might be the orange here. And again, this is a good pulse check on how people are feeling as the markets move, and what their potential reactions are. And inside the system, then we provide all the scripts for dealing with them based on their unique style. As I've already started to say to you in this training segment, money is very disruptive. It's a very powerful force. Doesn't matter how much you have, whether you have none or a lot, people always have money issues. Of course, most of us would rather have more money than less money, but money does create complications. And just for the record, and we've done research on this, the amount of money that you need to be happy in the United States is $105,000 a year as of now in 2022. So having multi-millions of dollars doesn't necessarily help your life. Sure, it opens up the doors to lots of opportunities, but it can cause many other complications and stresses in dealing with it. But again, not having enough means that many opportunities are closed. You're not as in control of your life, and that it has an impact on stress and happiness as well. And as I said before, your health. So in terms of having the conversation about money, you don't need to make this too hard on yourself as the advisor, coach, or a facilitator. First point is get the person to complete their financial DNA discovery. And you obviously need to have done this for yourself, which I'm sure you have if you're watching this module now. But that's the starting point. And then getting your client or family member or friend to complete the DNA discovery to provide an objective readout on who they are and what their propensities are, in terms of behavior, but also in dealing with money. And based on the strength of those behaviors, it will help you design the conversation agenda that you need to have, because we would always recommend that you start the conversation by asking positive questions in the area of the person's strengths. That's the key thing to do. And by asking questions, then let the person talk and listen, and be listening for their perspectives. Ideally, if this is a coaching or an advisory setting or a facilitation situation, it's good if there are people in the room or a person in the room with you that's got a different behavioral style that will inherently be listening for different things from you. And the best practice would be to combine the notes on what you each heard. So an initiator should have a community builder or relationship builder in the room with them. and you will hear different things, and the richness of the conversation will come down to what you both hear combined. And then the last part's, how you work with the client on an ongoing basis to hold them accountable, to understand their feelings, to build the plan. And they've got to own the plan. They've got to define what they're going to go and do in the future to change the state of money in their lives. But what's important about the money conversation is to follow the platinum rule. If you talk about money first, directly, it will raise all sorts of emotions, and probably the conversation will get clouded and not really get to the right place from the get-go. So we would always encourage in the DNA model, talk to the person about who they are, their identity, their life purpose, their talents, their passions. Help them really get clarity on who they are. Because it's from there that the meaning of money in their life will flow. And the intermediate step to that is, once a person's aware of their identity and what their purpose in life is, get them to draw a painted picture of what they see their life looking like over the next 3 to 5 years. By having a visual, that's going to be help them cement their goals and want to pursue that life and hold themselves to account for pursuing that life. So the visual is behaviorally very important. That's why I encourage people drawing a painted picture. I did this for myself, actually, back in 2001, because a friend asked me to do it. And that's really when I cottoned on, and I drew the life that I wanted. And 6-7 years later, I could see how, when I looked at that diagram in my journal, how a lot of things had unfolded. The house I live in now was almost an exact replica. Having dogs, having kids, living in another country, all these things unpack themselves because I drew a diagram. And in a way, drawing also is bringing out some of the subconscious mind. So this is important to get that set. And then we can talk about the relationship with money. And that conversation will get a whole lot easier because it's now being built around the person's authentic identity. And here's the next part is, in having this money conversation, you've got to talk to your client on their terms, not on your own. And again, it's very easy as a advisor, coach, facilitator to be triggered in some way that you're not even aware of. And you just go back into your own zone. And if you're a more results-oriented person like me, you start preaching to the person, you start pushing them towards goals, and they just may not be that person. And you've always got to remember that you need to communicate with the other person on their terms. And so if you know the person in front of you is relational, talk about their desires, connect to their emotions, ask them how they're feeling. And for the results-driven person, logic is something that they will respond to, their goals, talk about the results. But ultimately, to succeed in the money conversation, it does have to get back to a place of feelings. And as much as DNA behavior is putting measurement on a person's behavior and their energy to achieve quantum leaps in your life, you need to connect to your feelings, which are going to be related to your subconscious mind, your heart as well. And we talk a lot more about that in our money energy program. But nevertheless, you've got to know the gateway into the person. And for some people, the results-driven people, it is going to be talking about numbers and logic. But getting them to go past that then later on in the conversation is important. Whereas the relational people, you can start with their feelings and emotions and desires, but there also needs to be some logic put on it as well, and framework and realism. So, we all end up back in the same place. but the starting point is very important, and how you communicate with the person and adapt your own communication is fundamental. And this is where I've got the paint a picture. So getting someone to draw this for themselves is very important. So hopefully I've given you a good overview of how the DNA behavior system plays itself out in money. And if you want to learn more, just contact our team and also go to the extensive resources on our websites.